This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to the second last episode of Hafta in the year 2020, in the crappy year 2020, I might add.
Sure.
Yes.
And I have one more Hafta to go to boast that I did not miss a single Hafta this full year. That means I haven't taken a day off this full year. Just want to rub it in the face of Manisha, who's back from
Hi.
Goa.
Yes, I'm back.
She's nice and tanned.
Yes.
We are recording this episode of NL Hafta on Thursday, the 24th of December at 4:30 in the late afternoon or early evening. So about, I think 3 weeks ago, we had promised our listeners that we'll have a COVID special episode, and it's taken us a while to get our panel, and we have a remarkable panel for you. We have someone who is both a public health expert and has studied medicine as a doctor. And we have someone who has been referred to me by people who I hold in very high virtue of very
Regard.
judgment,
Esteem.
very esteem, regard. The person who's done the best reporting, public health reporting in India. So before I introduce the two guests, let me introduce our in-house panel, which is Raman sir, our managing editor, Manisha, who's back.
Hello.
And I have a couple of announcements that I shall make in a bit. But first, our panel. We have joining us from London, which is I think 5.5 hours behind us, Dr. Jamni N. Rao. Hi, Dr. Rao.
Hello, hi there. Good morning to everybody, or rather, good afternoon.
Yeah,
to everybody.
it's 4
Good
o'clock
evening
for us.
now.
Well, it's early evening. It's like what they might call in your part of the world, cup of tea and muffin time in it. I don't-
Yes, yes. In a couple of hours, it'll be a glass of gin time. It'll be
Right. So Dr. Rao is an independent public health physician and epidemiologist. He has over 25 years experience in Britain's National Health Service and 5 in the senior civil service with the Department of Health. He has particular skills in data science, medical research ethics, evaluation of research proposals, critical appraisal of clinical evidence, and health policy development. He's a visiting professor in public health at Staffordshire University, and he's also columnist for us, and he's also written for The Wire, I believe. And we have got a lot of phenomenal feedback for his pieces. Welcome, Dr. Rao.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us is Priyanka Pula. Priyanka is a freelance journalist. She writes on science, policy, and medicine. She's written for Science, the British Medical Journal, Forbes India, Nature India, The Wire, and Mint. And in the past has also worked with The Hindu. She has won the Red Ink Award for Journalism, the Science and Innovation category. Hi, Priyanka.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for making the time. Which part of the world are you in right now, Priyanka?
I'm based in Bangalore.
I see. And also joining us is our very own editor. Where are you this week, by the way, Jayashree?
I'm in Chennai only. One time I was in Bangalore. The rest of the time I'm always in Madras.
Okay, then maybe we have a little bit also on important development in South politics, and a lot of people are peloing gyan. In fact,
Oh,
the
no.
same people who are peloing gyan on the farmers' protest of Punjab were telling us about Tamil Nadu politics being influenced by the entry of Rajnikant. So maybe you can give us a better perspective.
Yeah, I'll happily give you some gyan as well.
Great. Excellent. Before we jump into the discussions, here are the headlines of the week.
New coronavirus variant identified in the UK. There's also a more infectious coronavirus strain discovered in South Africa. These new strains are not yet in India, says the Indian government. We have issued SOPs for visitors from UK. Coronavirus has reached end of Earth as first outbreak hits Antarctica. AstraZeneca says its vaccine should be effective against new coronavirus variant.
So we have a lot of coronavirus related news, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad we finally have the panel we do today to give you the most amazing and hopefully informative COVID discussion.
Yep. Hindi news channel Republic Bharat was fined by UK regulator Ofcom for hate speech.
Yes, 20 lakhs approximately is what they find, but for them, unke haath ki mail hai.
Yeah. 14 members of Muslim man's family arrested under anti-conversion law in Uttar Pradesh. Meanwhile, a UP Muslim teenager met a Dalit girl for a pizza outing and landed in jail under anti-conversion law, again in UP. 2 dead and 15 sick after gas leak in IFCO plant in Prayagraj. CM Adityanath has ordered a probe. Honda has discontinued 2 of its high-end models, CR-V and Civic, and it has shut its Greater Noida plant.
In fact, if you were to see the data on what the industrial kind of capacity of UP is, and Yogi Adityanath saying that he'll turn into whatever $2 trillion or whatever economy the data just doesn't back it. And what's happening in UP definitely doesn't.
The Gupkar Alliance has secured over 100 seats, and BJP has emerged as the single largest party in the District Development Council elections that were held in Jammu and Kashmir.
And everyone's claiming this as a victory. BJP saying that we're the single largest party. The Gupkar Alliance saying that we've won the most seats. But next week, when we have our fellow panelist and colleague Mehraj back, we will talk a little more about this. We shall not discuss this in this week's Hafta.
Protesting farmers showed black flags to Haryana CM in Ambala. 13 of these farmers were booked for attempt for murder and rioting.
Wow.
Too much democracy. Varvara Rao to remain in Nanavati Hospital till January 7th as Bombay High Court adjourns his bail plea. Kerala Catholic priest and nun get life imprisonment in Sister Abhaya's murder case. They were convicted after 28 years thanks to the work of B. Srijan. He's a journalist who's currently with Times of India. And it was his reporting in 2007 that reopened this case and started conversation in it. He reported that the forensic had been tampered with in this case. So don't lose hope in good journalism.
Yeah, man. There are
still
plenty
good
of
journalism happening driven by public interest.
and leading to some kind of change.
Justice and change.
Keep the faith.
Congress delegation including Rahul Gandhi meets President Kovind and seeks withdrawal of farm laws. Earlier that day, Congress delegation led by Priyanka Gandhi was detained and put in preventive custody for trying to march up to the president's house. Workers at an iPhone manufacturing unit in Karnataka's Kolar district went on a rampage. They broke glass windows and did other things. And they said the reason was pent-up anger because of delayed salaries, faulty attendance reports, and outstanding payments for overtime workers. Some very dramatic visuals, like one worker breaking a window and other employees cheering her.
And finally, what we discussed 2-3 weeks ago, Rajnikant said he'll launch his new party. Will he, won't he, will he, won't he? Now he's clearly said that he will. But now there's all sorts of speculation. Will Kamal Hassan join him? Will Aragiri join him, who is the brother of Stalin, who was kicked out of DMK? So Jayashree will hopefully have some gyan to give on this development in the politics of Tamil Nadu. But first, COVID, the biggest story of the year, the week, the month, the decade.
Yeah, possibly the decade.
Okay, guys, before we carry on, a very important announcement. Hafta is now behind the paywall. The pitch is for Mufat Khors to subscribe. All you Mufat Khors, those of you who are not earning or are students, it's okay. I think this is the age where you should be able to mooch off for free like we did when we were young. But those who are earning, you should subscribe and pay to keep news free, because only then does the news serve you. As you know, we have also been recently slapped with a legal notice from the Times Group, and meanwhile we're in court against the Sakal Group. So as we start calling legacy media out, they will come after us with the might that they have of ad-funded money. And of course, it's doubly ironic and infuriating that the money that they're using to come after us in court is actually our money, which we gave to the government as taxes, and the government is giving to them as advertisements. So do subscribe. There are other benefits too when you get a subscription or you buy a subscription of News Laundry by going on newslaundry.com. You get access to complete unedited interviews. You get access to complete unedited podcasts. You get access to NL Recess, where we call celebrities and public figures and thinkers and intellectuals and stars, and you can interact with them over Zoom. We have like a Zoom party among News Laundry subscribers, and you get access to our new podcast player. So let me start off with Dr. Rao first. Dr. Rao, there were 2 or 3 significant developments this week. One was that there is a strain in UK where you are, which is this new, more infectious strain, but we are told it is not necessarily more virulent. Then there is also a strain in South Africa. I have read one report which suggests it's the same strain in South Africa which has made its way to London. So A, is that the case? B, is it that it is found there because you have the most advanced labs in your part of the world? Because that is what one doctor suggested, at least on the panel that I was watching on one of the Indian channels. And will this have any impact on the vaccine that is being made? Because AstraZeneca has said it has no impact.
The best information that we have at the moment is that, yes, it is the case that there is a new variant spreading rapidly in London and the southeast, but not confined to those 2 parts of Britain. It's all over. Every region in Britain has got a few cases, at least, of the new variant. It is also true that Britain has had a long record of studying the genome pattern of coronavirus. For public health, the 4 countries, there are 4 countries in the UK, all the 4 public health services combined with with several academic departments and the Sanger Institute in Cambridge, who have special expertise in genome analysis and indeed set up the Million Genome Project and so on, have been tracking the genome constitution of the coronavirus specimens that they have been collecting since April 2020. And since then, they have done about 150,000 samples have been analyzed. The only country that is doing, and that amounts to about 10% of all specimens that have been collected, i.e. tested, people who've tested positive, their samples have been collected. So Britain has been doing for 10% of all coronavirus samples have been genome sequenced. The only country doing more is Denmark. And Denmark is doing it because of their seal problem. You know, they had a problem with a seal's variant of it, a mink variant of it.
Yes, where thousands of mink were culled or something. I read about that as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
they are doing 20% of all specimens are being genome sequenced. Some other European countries are doing under 1%, and some countries don't have the capacity at all. Now, I don't have any good data about what other countries are doing. Certainly, South Africa is doing because they have picked up a few specimens, a few variants. But this is not the first variant to be detected. There have been loads of other variants that have been detected and have gone virtually unnoticed. The reason this is important is that for the first time, this particular variant involves no less than 10 or 12 particular amino acids have been replaced. In other words, 10 or 12 sites have undergone mutation. Mutation is a natural process. It happens all the time with all sorts of viruses. The second thing is that there has been a rapid rise in the proportion of cases that are this new variant. So it used to be around 25, 27% as recently as September, October. And in early December, it touched 70%. So of every 100 cases picked up in the Southeast, about 20-25 were the old variant of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And in a period of 6 to 8 weeks, it has now become 70%. So it is spreading faster. It is more transmissible. And the best estimate we have now is that it is 70% more transmissible. The South African strain is even more transmissible than the new variant UK mutant
so then
coronavirus.
It's not the same in both the countries. It's different in South Africa and UK.
It's different. The South African one is probably more transmissible. That's the latest information that we have, but it needs confirmation. It needs confirmation because, you know, if you find about 10 cases, you really can't make a story out of it. But if the pattern is repeated, and if that is spreading even faster, if an even greater proportion of new infections are found to be of the new South African mutation, then it'll show that it is spreading even faster. So we have two problems. One is there has been a growth in cases in the southeast of England, particularly in London. And most of those cases now, most of the new cases now, are definitely of the new mutant coronavirus.
Now, does this have any impact on because AstraZeneca will say that, you know, because they will not say we don't know because then the stock will plummet. But can we conclusively say that it will not, it won't make the vaccine redundant or we will have to redo the vaccine? I mean, do we know?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you can never say never in clinical medicine, particularly when it comes to new and emerging viruses. You can never say never. You can never say always. None of those statements are probably justified. But the best we know is that the vaccine acts upon at least three different sites. And therefore, even if there is a change in one part of the antigenic makeup of the new coronavirus, it's likely that the other two will be attacked by the vaccine. But everybody now, all the labs certainly, AstraZeneca definitely, and some of the academic labs are sort of scrambling hard to test whether the antibodies that the vaccine generates is effective against the new variant coronavirus. Now that is only, if you like, suggestive evidence. You can have the antibody in the test tube, the antibody attached to the new coronavirus, so far so good. But it has to be tested in the field. That will unfortunately take at least a few weeks. That we won't know the answer to that soon.
So I had a question in spirit of the year ending, to kind of look back at how we dealt with this virus. So Priyanka is someone who's reported on it for almost 9 months now, I think. I wanted to know from you what you think of India's response to the virus. What were the high points, especially of Indian government? Like, what did we do right according to you, and what did we do really wrong?
Okay, that's a really big question. So what they did wrong, I think, I'm going to talk about that first, is there was too much denial, and there was too much denial in their communication. regardless of what they believed in private, the Indian government, the health ministry, ICMR, what they said in public was at odds with what we know they were thinking in initial days. I mean, there's been reporting from so many people like Nitin Sethi, Article 14 about, how ICMR believed the virus would pan out in the initial days. They believed that despite airport screening, we would see community transmission very soon. But that's not what they said in public. They would say, everything is hunky-dory. And till date, they haven't accepted that there is community transmission, which is hilarious. So I think the communication was a big failure, and that's not a small deal. I think that's central to your outbreak response. What they did well, once they got down to it with testing, etc. Sure, they ramped it up. They brought in the private sector, but again, there were problems there too. So yeah, what are the positive things they did? I'm going to mute myself for a bit and think.
Okay.
Wow. So it really doesn't say much. Nothing positive?
Yes, I just have a quick question. So after Navaratri and Deepavali, I think some people were predicting that India would see a festive surge in the number of cases, but I'm not sure if that happened. And now they're having New Year curfews and so on. Do you think we could anticipate to see something in January, or because numbers are fairly stabilized right now and falling in some
They're
cases?
falling, in fact, and one would have thought that after the Bihar election where they were
Yeah.
So the Ram Janmabhoomi thing that happened in UP, then Bihar election,
there was so much of, and now the
farmers' protest.
The farmers' protest, yeah.
So, I mean, Singhu border,
And rallies.
farmers have clearly said कि कोई coronavirus नहीं
And
है.
huge
We are
rallies
fine.
in Kolkata.
Yeah, Kolkata rallies,
Yeah.
yes.
So we have had like major super spreader events, but didn't really lead to anything.
I think it's a matter of convenience, really. When you want to do something, then coronavirus is not a disincentive to do it because, okay, that's important, we do. When it comes to Parliament, of course, Parliament can't function because of the fear of coronavirus. So it's expediency rather than science driving it.
I think things have happened in the past, and recently it's a shade, above whatever has happened in the past. And I think social media has also amplified it a bit. What I feel now, I mean, something which is happening of late, especially after 2010, whichever state, whichever the government is there, the administration, the police, everything becomes the B team of the ruling party. I mean, the government. So this is what is happening. So if you see UP, the case that you have just referred to, this teen wala, we are already doing a series of stories on Love Jihad. Our reporters are there, and I've been talking to them every day. So these people have been telling the Hindu Mahasabha and Bajrang Dal. So all these outfits who have over 2-3 lakh membership. So they are spread all over the state, and how they have become assisting the police, getting these cases. The police, it is not the police which is so active. These people are the ones who are active. They tell the police, and the police is bound to take action. And of course, let us in the cases of Love Jihad, I think the judiciary is still doing much better. I think whatever cases that have come up in the court, the judiciary has taken a stand that the law contravenes our fundamental freedom, right to freedom. So I think in UP, the judiciary here, particularly in Love Jihad case, it is happening.
What do you think, Manisha? You want to weigh in on the intersection of all these many stories?
No, I think with what you said, that we're like in Trump's zone, or we're worse than that. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think we're we're completely walking backwards. If you look at this Love Jihad case, I mean, quote unquote Love Jihad case, 17-year-old boy, 16-year-old girl go out for a pizza. The villagers spot them and say, oh, look, they're out. And oh, one of the guys is a Muslim. Do you not know? The police jumps in, forces the father to write a complaint. The father says, I don't want to complain because there was no talk of elopement. They just met each other. And the police is telling the father, but she could elope. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You don't want to write a complaint? Like, what if your daughter just goes away? Aise to hota hai. So this kind of a complete, and this is so, in a way, that this law is so good for Indians, because if you see, this is sort of an extension of what we have seen for a while, right? Like couples being troubled by police if they're sitting in a garden, ki kyun baithe ho, mummy ko pata hai, papa ko pata hai. Generally neighbors being nosy. And I think that India used to be, I mean, among the nations that were colonized, India was possibly one of the few nations that were a successful democracy. But I'm wondering now if we just lucked out. Like maybe we just got lucky with Ambedkar, Nehru, Gandhi, who were all foreign educated. They were liberals, educated abroad, and they got with them the foreign Western democracy ideals. Maybe this is the true nature of our country. And this is really what India is. And we're probably going to now really see what India is. With, again, that news report of farmers being slapped with attempt to murder for waving a black flag. That is nuts.
And the brazenness.
And what doesn't... So these things are happening, it's fine. But how they're normalized, there's no discussion about this anywhere. It's just like, one more person in jail. It's even stopped shocking me. Like after everything we've seen in Delhi riots, where students have been jailed.
Absolutely.
Umar Khalid in jail for 100 days.
No, you have video evidence of police beating up kids, one of whom died. But yet that cop is not being tried for murder.
Yeah.
No,
and
rather
so,
they have booked the civilians in those cases.
Right.
And at least in the US, you have Trump and whatever, you have a strong media that's pushed back. This love jihad thing was championed by all news anchors, including women news anchors like Anjana Om Kashyap. Yeah, it was trumped as like, Yogi ab dikha dega tumhe. अब तुम करो प्यार या तुम करो वो जो भी कन्वर्जन तो तुम्हें दिखाएगा योगी आ गया दिखाने. So I mean, what hope do we have really?
Jayeshi, what's your take? Are you as cynical as young Manisha here?
Yeah, probably more. I mean, I also agree that I think this is what Indians are really like. I mean, I think it's very easy for urban elites sitting in cities to say, oh my God, like people who support things like love jihad, that's a rural mindset. But this is very untrue. I mean, a lot of very educated upper caste people I know do fully support it. But no one is calling it what it is, right? A love jihad law is an anti-miscegenation law. It's something that the Nazis and the KKK had supported, where they wanted racial segregation at the level of marriage. And this is what we're seeing.
Republic Bharat, which is an Indian channel by Arnab Goswami, our favorite whipping boy, which was fined 20,000 pounds in UK. I mean, the channel that distributes for hate speech. So it's fined over there, but in India, it is amongst the most popular. It is one that is patronized by brands and the government. And you find a lot of people saying they do great work.
No, the same program here gets bypassed. Yeah. The government doesn't take any action.
People won't even bat an eyelid. Calling Pakistani terrorists is just, it's an everyday thing, not even like...
Yes.
It's not just Arnab who does it.
I mean, why do you go so far? I know of non-resident Indian of Indian origin people in this country who actually believe that Arnab Goswami was unfairly treated by what's called Ofcom, the Office of Communications, the media regulator in this country. They believe that. And you may have seen my sort of Twitter thread about it. When I posted a message about this, saying, Arnab Goswami got his comeuppance thanks to Ofcom's impartiality in this country, the feedback, the pushback I got from many people on this WhatsApp group of educated doctors was to say that what right have the British got to tell off Arnab Goswami when the BBC itself is partisan and communal. And the evidence for the BBC's communal nature is the fact that they don't report Diwali as much as they report Christmas.
But that is equidistant.
But the funny thing is they do report Diwali. Every Diwali time, on the day of Diwali, the news coverage is all about how Diwali was celebrated, how the lights came on in Leicester, in Southall, in Birmingham, in London, the big parliamentary Diwali celebrations and so on. Then the next complaint is that, they took the wrong side of the debate when it came to the caste equality bill in this country, where the government had a consultation on whether caste should be included as one of the qualifying criteria for the equalities bill. The Hindu community in this country protested at that, saying, no, there is no caste in Hinduism at all. It doesn't exist. And finally, it was dropped because of the amount of noise that was made. They dropped it and said that existing legislation provides for that, and therefore we don't need to include caste in it, like race and gender and so on. So that's their evidence of BBC's impartiality. So Arnab Goswami is now actually a hero for having shown two fingers to the British regulator. But the fact that he's paid a £20,000 fine and the fact that he's apologized for it is completely by the by. So that's the level of penetration of people like, say, Arnab Goswami and his ideology.
It's fascinating. In fact, not only is BBC, not communal, you should see NASA every Diwali clicks a picture of India and floats it all over.
Yes. Of India lighting. Beautiful picture of India on Diwali.
Right. All of you listening in, the Chota Hafta, do subscribe so you can listen to the entire Hafta. We will see you again next week with the Hafta. Till then, subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.